did not go to fashion school. I have a degree in economics. I did a few short courses online. We're talking like 1 hour a week for 4 weeks to try to give you like a little taster. I've only ever done one in-person class and it was about couture tailoring. I learned a ton, but it's like, that's not gonna teach you how to be a fashion designer. Do I think you should go to fashion school? No, I think it's a waste of money. It's like saying, should you go to art school? Do you want to go to art school? If you want to, if you can, sure. Do you need to? No. If you're new here, I'm Leigh. I quit my job to become a fashion designer after spending 2 years learning on my own. I'm making my first collection. I gave myself 13 weeks to do it in. We're on week 4 of the process. A process that I laid out for myself. I researched and learned how you do the thing, and now I'm doing the thing. This is my reaction to what you do when you can't follow the traditional fashion route. But then why would I want to? Everyone is so dissatisfied with how the fashion industry is anyway. You're definitely not going to be able to make any disruptive change in the industry if you just do what everyone else is doing. So I'm not doing what everyone else is doing. I'm doing my own thing. But yeah, welcome to week 4. There's like 3 things that have always stuck with me about draping. The first is don't overthink it. You're just experimenting. If something looks interesting, you take a photo. But the second is also take photos of everything. So anytime you stop, take a photo. But don't overthink it because that's something that you can do later. This is upholstery foam. I ordered upholstery foam because I wanted to drape with it. Does that mean that the garment is going to be made out of upholstery foam? Definitely not. I can just make something out of upholstery foam to see what the shape might look like and then reverse engineer it in the fabric. So I'm very excited about this. I'm using a blanket stitch rather cavalierly on this, just because the blanket stitch also has this stitch on top that kind of pulls this together. Just kind of looks like a stegosaurus to me. The bigger piece goes on the front, and then this comes in here, forming the underarm. Definitely interested in what's happening here. Now I have this repository of all these different shapes. Doesn't mean the colors are right, doesn't even mean the placement on the body is exactly what I want, but now digitally I have photos, I can manipulate it, maybe take something that was up here and move it down to like a leg of a pant or something. Just get the photos and the rest can come later. And then the third thing, don't be afraid to grab fabric, grab different things, and then new ideas kind of keep taking root. After this draping exercise, I think I have more questions rather than answers as far as the collection, but I think that's a good place to be. There's a reason I schedule posts on Mondays. It's so that I get to already be in the thick of it. By the time you're starting to chime in the comment section, it's already Tuesday for me. So I'm already having a little bit of self-doubt. So I really do appreciate the comments. It does keep me going throughout the week, keep me working on this, because again, there is no blueprint. I'm pretty settled on the color palette, which is really important to me and my design process. I have this reference photo that I really love. It's from an artist, Wenzel Hablich. During his life, he did a lot of renderings of spaces and what he wanted them to look like. The colors in this, absolutely incredible, but he'd do renderings of these spaces. And then after his death, they ended up finding that he had painted the interior of his home. And that's what this photo is from. But he had wallpapered over it due to being in Nazi Germany, and so it wasn't until fairly recently that they uncovered it. And this will really help guide how I'm using the color and then which fabrics I wanted to use. I haven't been sharing a ton with what I've been doing with the boards because they've just been kind of a placeholder for idea images, but now that I'm certain about kind of where our color palette is, these are actually going to become specific boards for potential looks at this point. I can kind of explain what I'm doing. The crocheted off of silk organza that we keep talking about. Initially, I had thought that I didn't want it to be a sheer piece, but I've been toying with the fact that I said that I didn't want it to be super wearable. I think conceptually it's nice, but realistically it's like I would line it. So what if I did this underneath as the lining, but to have these be separate? And so this is a pretty fast developing idea in my head, and I'm soon gonna have a sketch to go with it. The next idea that I want to separate out kind of revolves around this gorgeous navy blue velvet. I also have 2 reference images for kind of the fabric manipulation I was thinking of. Remember the jacket from that second episode? And it had these wonderful little gatherings in the velvet. That had got me thinking in terms of a dress. This is just a vintage coat that I had saved on Vestiaire because I really liked what was done with the details there. And so that's kind of what I had emulated in the swatch. I was thinking of using the velvet with some sheared mint green tulle. This is where having a really good color reference comes into play. You can see how beautifully they play off of each other. You know, I like to say that I'm doing original things, but then I was just like, wait, I'm kind of wearing that color scheme. Bright green, cobalt with the black, with the blue. Yeah, so, but I think this feels really fresh. I spent a decent time sketching today trying to flush out this idea, and I ended up with 2 designs that are not what I wanted, and so I was getting frustrated, and then I just kind of banged out a very bad sketch of what I did actually have in my head. But I think that's a good example of, you know, the idea is not fully formed yet. So 4 weeks in, that's like a third of the way. Yesterday I was sketching. I got really stuck on the last idea. I was able to do a bunch of iterations in this like bodysuit concept. It just felt incomplete. Why do I keep hitting these roadblocks? Why am I not able to just fully see the idea? Why am I only able to get to like part of an outfit but not the whole thing? So I needed to connect my ideas. There was something still missing from my mood boards, my concepts. I had gone down a rabbit hole on Pinterest on this woman, Anne Bonfoy Taylor, and I had pinned images of her onto my mood board, but I didn't know how they connected. And then yesterday, the book came that's on the exhibit. It talks about her life. Spreads like this are what drew me to her as somebody to look at, to kind of capture something for this collection. When I was flipping through this book and reading about her life and realizing how awful her evening wear, despite having those beautiful tailors on the planet, I thought it was just so boring. But then to watch this different creature emerge on the ski slopes with things she designed herself, I was like, ah, there it is. That's what I was looking for. But it isn't just taking this book on its own. I also got this book, Women's Work, Textile Art from the Bauhaus. It's a lengthy read during a time between World War I and World War II, reading about women and their approach to the arts, how they took refuge in the arts and the power of those arts. But then opening this up immediately after and reading about the lives of these Bauhaus women artists, the impact that these women were able to have, those who were able to flee and make it to the States and founded arts movements in contrast with an American. This book was really heavy. So the muse that I was missing isn't so much a person and would she wear this, but it was the freedom that she found in her ski attire. It was one place where this entirely different, unrestricted self-expression came out in this privileged American life, juxtaposed against the Bauhaus movement, and it's so relevant right now. I not only was able to connect the dots with this, that first look that I was struggling with so much earlier just completed itself in my head. Maybe this is why no one shares this part of their process, because it's not just that they don't want to, it's just really hard. I had been trying to sketch out this idea, and I layered these fabulous, they're vintage IKEA sleeping bags. It almost looked like a skirt, so that started another idea in my head. There's something about those particular textiles that makes me think of Charles James. Let me get you a visual. That's why having a library is good. Charles James, famous eider-down puffer coat. And I came up with this idea, which is that, but only as a one sleeve, but maybe isn't closed at the top. As soon as I had the muse idea lock in, I was thinking having that crochet extend down the arms, and it grew into knitwear, so it becomes truly a jumpsuit, a single piece. But then in terms of the knitwear, immediately you think, okay, she's gonna do ski, she's gonna do Fair Isle, and that's not where I wanna go with this at all. I read most of this book last night. It discusses weaving specifically. I think it's very interesting to potentially do woven motifs in a knit. Good morning. This idea today of starting to get the mood boards on the wall in a more permanent way. So I was like, I think if I can find some nails. I have found some, but I guess I also need probably like a hammer, yeah. Fiber art tools to the rescue. Now that we're getting into designing looks, I want there to actually be looks on the wall that I can reference. Too bad I can't just, maybe I can. I really like these two with the trousers. So this look works, but for this version of it with the trousers, there isn't gonna be an under thing. It just doesn't work for me. These more jumpsuity guys, I'm okay with having this layered underneath. I don't think I'm gonna work on this anymore today, but I wanna capture some of my thoughts on this. I need a fabric swatch for the top part that we worked on yesterday. I need to try out trouser ideas. This is really, really thick fabric. And so for that pleat, I wanna try it out, but then I also wanna try out a lace-up concept. Last year I had tried out this concept already. It has the seaming here, but what I'm noticing is I think I would want the pleat more in front here, but you can see my point of how when this drapes, because it is so thick, it makes that leg pleat really wide. One thing I do love though is on the back, it has an exposed seam. That's a really cool idea. So of course, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna take some photos of it so that we can mess around with it. Here's where I know I'm on the right track. I mentioned the knitted tube art by Katrina Sanchez Stanfield, and she mentions one of her influences being Sheila Hicks. And Sheila Hicks is a very prominent weaving artist. I had known about Sheila Hicks before because I have a bit of an obsession with this book designer Irma Boom, and Irma Boom made Sheila Hicks's book on weaving that's called, oh my gosh, I'm gonna tell you because we all need to go and get it. It's going on my Christmas list. It's called Weaving as a Metaphor. Like, this is, we're connecting all the dots. We have our knitted tubes that I'm so inspired by. We have Sheila Hicks. Sheila Hicks studied with Josef Albers, one of the teachers of the Bauhaus, known for his color theory, but his wife was also a very prominent weaver. Both are mentioned in this book, and Sheila Hicks's work has been shown in Germany being influenced by Bauhaus. My point being, choosing a reference as kind of that color palette was disconnected, but as soon as you start tracing back all of these little threads that I'm looking at, they all actually seem to have a common origin. And now you may still have absolutely no idea how this all translates in a collection, but I do. It's starting to come together. It really is. But yeah, don't go to fashion school. And I've met enough people who've gone to fashion school who tell me how little they learned. I've met people who've gone to fashion school who know so much, but it always is because they're interested in the topic. And if you wonder if I have any idea what I'm talking about, arguably I might not, but you can go look at other things I've made on YouTube. I do chronicle some of the more interesting things I've designed and made. I'm grateful that you're here following along with me through this process. and I'm really excited.